Wagwan y'all, it's Dimz back for the attack, but you already know that, and today we are going to look at a review of Victrix Gambit controller. I was in the market for a new controller that had back paddles when Victrix announced that they will be making a new controller for around $100. Let's find out if it's any good. First things first, let's get this thing unboxed and see what comes inside. Outside of the box, we see that everything is actually stored in this great armored carrying case. And not only everything, but it's everything plus the controller. And everything just fits really well inside of this. Inside, you get the two faceplates. The purple one is soft and made of rubber, while the white one is just a hard shell. The controller uses magnets for you to easily be able to remove or replace the shells. There's one dome thumbstick and one tall thumbstick. So this means you cannot have double dome thumbsticks or you cannot have double tall sticks. A 3 meter or about 10 feet braided cable, which is USB-C to USB-A cable. Two octagonal thumbstick gates to replace either or both of the circular joystick gates or rings if so have you. You also get two back paddles. One of them has the extra 2 buttons, while the other one has an extra 4 buttons, depending on what you prefer. Now, with all that settled, I'll see you in a week or two just to test out the controller. See you then. Alright, review time. After about 2 weeks of playing with this controller, I think I can tell you all about it now. The goods, the bads, and the nitpicks. First off, let me say that I did not test the mic audio quality of this controller. It is stated that this controller has a great mic quality and is compatible with Dolby Atmos. But I did not use it once since I have usually have my mic or headset wired through my PC. Secondly, this controller is wired only. For me, that's no problem, especially since they threw in a 10-foot detachable cable. However, what is swell for me, it probably is not swell for everyone. So if you prefer a wireless or Bluetooth controller, then I am sorry, this might not be the controller for you. I am assuming this controller aims to be a tournament controller, especially with the advertisement. So that's probably why it's wired, since wired controllers are the most tournament friendly controllers there are. But with all that out of the way, let's get to the goods of this controller. Just off the bat, this controller feels great. It feels like a quality and a sturdy product. Like some key things that I love about this controller is how the triggers hook upward just to hold your fingers. I love this stylish design they went for the menu buttons, while it's very functional as well. And I love the face buttons feel. I love how it feels. It actually is smaller than the standard Xbox Series X controller, but it just feels better. It's not as mushy as the standard Xbox controller. It kind of feels like the Switch Pro controller, but easier to press. Victrix also claims that the controller has less input latency compared to the standard Xbox controller or any other controllers on the market right now, which is big if true. I don't have the means to test it properly, but I'll take their word for it because I didn't notice any difference. Aside from the feel of the controller, you can also adjust the trigger's pull difference on the fly with this controller, and you can set it at any custom levels. There's a clutch button or clutch buttons in the back. All you have to do is hold down the trigger as far as you want the trigger to pull down, then pull down the clutch button, and then it will just stop right there whenever you pull the trigger. And even if you want like hair triggers, all you have to do is not touch the trigger at all, just pull the clutch button, and there, it will just stop where it is at. So there you have hair triggers. One underrated thing that I absolutely love about this controller is the USB-C housing. The cable has this big block on it, and the controller port has this deep hole. So when you put them together, you just get this seamless flush look to it. To me, that's really cool. What else is cool is that with such a spacious design around the port, you can actually use other USB-C cables with little to no problem. This is big for me because a lot of other products that have unique cable port designs, sometimes generic cables just don't fit into them as well, which makes finding replacements or substitutions for USB-C cables harder than it actually needs to be. And just like adjusting the trigger tension on the fly, this controller also allows you to remap the back paddles on the fly. I love this feature, and it also saves you so much times, and it actually saves your last paddle configuration when you turn on the controller. All you have to do is hold which paddle you want to remap, press the function button, and then press whatever button you want it to function as once the function button starts blinking. To clear the current mapping of the controller is the same process, except instead of choosing a button, you just click the same paddle again and it'll just revert it to nothing. And the last good thing about this controller is the software that it comes with, or the software that it just works in tandem with it. Without going into too much details, in the software you can actually change your thumbsticks dead zones, recalibrate your thumbsticks, and remap your controller buttons. This is just natively to the controller, which is a great tool if you'd like to play games and some games don't have remap options. You can just remap it on the controller itself. Or, if your sticks start giving you issues for any reason, you can recalibrate or just adjust the dead zones. This controller has a lot of positives, but let's talk about a nitpick or two. One nitpick I have with this controller is the purple or rubber face shell is unable to change the rings or the gates around the thumbsticks to the octagonal ones, and that is because the purple shell doesn't actually have the grooves that needs to be for it to be swapped in like the white one does. So if you're a fan of the purple rubber shell, but you want to change one of the rings to the octagonal ring, or even both of them, you're kind of out of luck. Also, while we're on nitpicks, with the purple controller shell, there's a bit of friction feeling with the thumbstick rubbing against the purple rubber. It's not enough to actually hinder your gameplay, but it is noticeable, especially if you keep switching back and forth through those two shells. You'll be able to feel it. Now it's time for me to talk about the only one bad issue I have with this controller. Keep in mind, depending on who you are, you can probably classify this issue as a glorified nitpick, but let me just explain. The controller D-pad, I feel, can use some work. The main issue is that rolling your thumb across it is kind of difficult. It's not impossible, mind you, but it's just difficult. When just pressing the buttons, they feel solid, but when you're trying to do like quarter circles or just continuous movements with it, the issues makes itself known. Granted, for the most part, controllers like these are usually used for shooting games, so that's not really going to be an issue. But if you're trying to play a fighting game and you exclusively want to use the D-pad, it's going to be a bit subpar of an experience. Weirdly enough, there's a swappable option for the D-pad that actually doesn't help the issue, but in fact makes it worse. Though with the octagonal gate on the joystick, you can just actually use that for when you play fighting games or even like rigorous platformers, and it works exceptionally well. But let me reiterate this. I'm not saying the D-pad is the worst thing in the world or that it's unusable. I'm just saying that this D-pad on this controller is subpar. So subpar that the standard Xbox Series controller is actually its D-pad is actually better than this. Now, obviously, this is not a knock to the Xbox Series D-pad because its D-pad is great. But my main issue is that as a pro controller, it shouldn't be outclassed by the standard version in such a simple area. And this is why I am marking this as a bad toward the controller because it falls flat compared to the standard version. So, in conclusion, Do I recommend the my bad. In conclusion, do I recommend the Victrix Gambit controller? Well, if you're looking for a wired-only, great-feeling pro controller with back paddles, I would absolutely say yes. This controller is made very well. Overall, great. Though I currently do not own an Xbox Elite 2 controller, which would be Gambit's most direct competition, I can say that the biggest edge the Elite 2 has over the Gambit is that the Elite 2 has a better D-pad and has the option to be used wirelessly. Aside from those two things, I would say that the Gambit fights a very strong fight against the Elite 2, especially with the retail price point of $100. All in all, I'm very happy with my purchase of the Victrix Gambit controller. If I were able to roll the D-pad just like the standard Xbox controller, I would say this controller would be perfect to me. But right now, it's just a great controller. So, if you enjoyed the video and want to see more of my content, please consider subscribing. If you really like the video and want to further support me, feel free to stop by and give me a tip or with a coffee in the description below. Anyway, I've been Dimz, and I hope you have an excellent day.